Welcome to our podcast, She's Bridging the Gap, where we're on a mission to bridge the gap through conversations that inspire change and build lives, businesses, and healthier minds. I'm Sam D, and I'm a certified nutrition coach and personal trainer.
I'm Hanah Harvey, and I'm a business coach and strategist.
And I'm Kendra Garrett, a mindset and accountability coach. In this podcast, we're going to bring you the tools you need to bridge the gap between your health, wealth, and relationships.
Hey guys, and welcome back to our podcast. So in this episode, we wanted to talk to you guys, or I guess start a conversation about managing our energy, because I feel like as moms, female entrepreneurs, like all the hats that we wear, we expend a lot of energy, and sometimes it's hard to just like manage it all, not feel tired or worn out all the time. So in this episode, we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to open up about some of our struggles, and we're going to share some tips with you at the end for how to just manage your energy and feel better, things that have worked for us. So I think number one is like when it comes to managing our energy, we have this like tendency to just like push through things. And I know push is a trigger word for Kendra. It's not like that word.
It's just I don't know, it's like a negative connotation behind pushing through.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just not my favorite thing to say and feel.
Yeah, it never feels good to be pushing.
No, it doesn't. So with that being said, why do you think we push through instead of giving ourselves what we really, really need?
I think a lot of it has to do with, like, for me, comparison, like seeing what other people are accomplishing when I'm scrolling social media or seeing things on TV or wherever it is. I just feel like I need to be like at their level, like them, push past them, achieve goals. I'm an overachiever. So I just feel like the comparison thing makes me push and hustle harder than anything else.
Yeah, like I don't know about you guys, but like when I've seen someone who's like maybe at my level and then a few months have passed and they've like passed me, which yay them, right? But in the back of my head, I'm like, man, if you would have just stuck through it and pushed through it, you could have been there too.
Yeah.
And yeah, just that like, yeah, trying to like achieve things.
That's definitely comparison. I think a lot of us do that. And it's what the culture says is hustle. Like, this is what you need to do for success and achieve this and achieve that, and hustle, 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 push, push, push. And there are seasons of times that you need to sacrifice time or money or whatever it might be. There are different seasons of it, which I don't even like to say seasons of hustle or pushing still, but seasons of sacrifice, I guess, is kind of what we'll go with, of how you need to balance your life, of what you need to sacrifice to give a little bit more over here to reach your goal of this over here. But then it balances back out. Like, we need to have a deadline of how long that season actually is, and then revisit, is that a month, 3 months, whatever goal that you are trying to meet, how long is it going to take? How much time, how much energy is it going to take of you? What do you need to do in that time to give over here, to give a little bit more over here, to reach those, and revisit at the end of that season of working. What's the phrase? I like working through, but at the end of that season, revisit that and see, do you need to have another season, a little, give yourself a break, and then you'll revisit the season of sacrifice again to work through a little bit harder to meet that goal. But it's finding that to where you don't get burnt out of just pushing all the time.
And I think it's something you have to become more aware of, because I have noticed that hustle and hustle culture is like very trendy, and it's like something to be proud of in a lot of communities when you're hustling. So I think that's something to just like keep an eye out for and make sure you don't fall into that trap.
Yeah. I think, like, I don't know, achieving and like feeling busy or whatever, it comes back to like how I was raised, like the more you're working, the more hours you're putting in, the more you're like volunteering in your community, your church, or the less free time you have meant the more like successful or a better person you were or whatever. Like the lack of free time was somehow attached to you being better, which most of us now, as we're growing our businesses or just living life, like the more free time we have is actually lets us know like how successful we are, if that makes any sort of sense.
Mhm.
It's like an internal feeling whenever you're on the go all the time and busy and always doing those things. When do you have time to check in with yourself to see if you're actually getting, is that filling your cup? And sometimes it is. I'm not like, I love to be a busy bee person doing a lot of the things, but I've also come to realize that doing all of those things all the time drains me. And I have to have time to fill my cup with the free time with myself or my family doing what I want to do.
Yes, absolutely. Something that when I was in a season of like wanting to shift my business, I think it was when I was doing like the VA to copywriter kind of thing. I talked to someone and they said like it's okay to like push or like work harder for a season, but the sacrifice has to be worth the reward. So if you're wanting to like I hate using the word push because it's a trigger word for me too. Like instead of like if let's say you're wanting to put in a few more hours into your business, or you're wanting to get healthy and so you're wanting to work out a little bit extra, or you're wanting to like focus on meal planning. It's like cool, that's awesome, but is the time and the energy you're putting into that going to be worth the reward? And the answer has to be yes in order for it to be worth it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so going to the word push, I kind of, which this is push and press are very similar, but to me, if I am to press in to something, that feels a lot better to me than I am being pushed. Like I feel
Mm.
like push is like I visualize from the back someone is pushing me in, but if I am like pressing in or leaning into something, it is me doing that by my own will, not someone else making me do it. Does that
Yeah.
make
Yeah,
sense? To
it
maybe in my head.
does. Yeah. And I can relate to that. So like, for example, I'm building my own YouTube channel, shameless plug. Uh, and it's not so much that I'm pushing because I enjoy it and I want it to be successful. And I know that this is only a season. So I'm pressing into getting more content out to build it quickly. And then I know that once I have built it, that it won't be so much pressing, so much pushing, and I can kind of like step back for a minute. So yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. So you're just in that season right now of pressing in a little bit more, but you
Yes.
know that there is an end in sight to be able to take a step back and not be as pressing into it of constant all the time. So another way to manage our energy is by communicating it to those closest around us or those who are helping out with our children or ourselves of what we actually need and actually asking for help. And the three of us have talked that sometimes that is the hardest thing to do, is actually be very clear in asking specifically for what you need, which it shouldn't be hard. People are literally waiting to be asked, or at least I'll speak for myself. There are different areas in my life where I'm waiting to be asked for help in certain areas. And some I will be able to say yes to. If it doesn't align with what I'm able to do right now, then I can say no. And I think that that is how we need to go into it. Of if we ask for help, trust that person that they will be honest with you in telling you yes they can or no they can't, and don't take it personally one way or another. But that way you are communicating very clearly what you need to help manage your energy during a certain possible hard season that you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's important to let go of the shame that we sometimes feel. I don't specifically for women, I think. It's like you feel shame when you have to ask for help or when you want help with something, because you should, judging by what we're told, should be able to do it all. And then also on the other side, don't feel shameful when you have to say no when somebody asks you for help somewhere else, but you can't, because that's going to spread you too thin. So if you have to say no, say no. And if you have to ask for help, ask for help. I struggle with the shame of doing that too. So I understand how hard that can be, but yeah, I think that's important.
I was just thinking, like, and if you're the one who people always ask for help, don't be
Yeah.
afraid to say no if you have to say no. Because
Right.
I mean, in the end, we're all just humans trying to balance all the things that are going on around us. Hey, we talked about this in an episode. I think Kendra, you brought up the example of like balancing plates, and you can only balance, so many spinning plates before like one of them has to drop. And so if you're getting to the point where it feels like one of them is going to drop, then okay, prioritize, ask for help, and just communicate with the people around you, your like support network, to be able to help you.
And another way, we are all females here. I would assume most of our listeners are also females, but if you're not, that's okay. But as females, we can all relate to that time of month. I know for me, it's a few days before my period starts, I start feeling more emotional, and things are maybe a little bit more annoying to me than they would have 5 days previously. And it's recognizing that. And I have it marked off on my calendar to, tentatively when that is supposed to happen each month. So my load can be lighter that week because of my energy level. I know will be spent that week more so than other weeks. But I also know the weeks that I feel more energized. It's generally the week after where I'm like, okay, that week I can be a little bit more productive because that's just how the cycle works. So I think recognizing when all of that is and when that is for each individual, and leveraging that to our benefit. It is something that is part of life. So how can we actually utilize that for our benefit?
For sure. I know for me, we were talking about this before we started recording. I have an IUD. So if you have an IUD, sometimes you don't get your period. So you have to just kind of guesstimate. And it's typically the last 2 weeks of every month is just like not a good time for me. It's not a good time for anybody around me either. So I know that, and I try to like front load on my month to be like, all right, this is when I am most creative. This is when I have the most energy, and that's when I'm going to do the things that require those things from me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's also like just giving yourself a little bit of an extra dose of permission to be able to manage your energy differently. Like if it is your time of the month, or if you're like experiencing like the harder part of your menstrual cycle, right? Because I was telling them before we started recording, there's like a new Midol commercial that's like, why are you down and resting? You can just take Midol and it'll make all the pain go away. Or
Not
like
so much.
the tampon.
That's not what we want to do.
Right, or like the tampon or pad commercials that are like, you'll barely know it's there, and it's like, that's a lie.
Yeah, like keep going horseback riding and playing tennis and all this. And I'm like, I want to sit in bed and watch a movie and eat popcorn and chocolate, and that's okay.
Right.
Right. So it's like, how can you just, I don't know. It's like, I guess reflecting is the word I'm looking for. Reflecting on how you actually feel, how things are actually impacting you as a person, instead of like, whenever Kendra, you were talking about how like push makes you feel like there's like an outside push like against you, I immediately pictured like getting pushed behind, and like social media and like society being the one like pushing you into something, right? And it's like, if you can just hit the pause button, reflect like how you're feeling with your energy, and just move on with that knowledge, then hopefully you'll be able to just feel a whole lot better.
Okay, so our tip for you surrounding this whole thing of avoiding having that hustle feeling or that pushing feeling is make sure that you're doing something for yourself. So for example, for me, I don't know what that would be for you ladies, but for me, it is turning on Bravo and watching The Real Housewives. Some people get stressed out from it. I love it.
And yeah, so some reality, like I have actually had to stop watching a reality show because I was like, I was getting stressed out over their
Yeah.
drama. Not that I won't ever go back to it, but in a season where it was really stressful in my personal life, that was just adding to it. It took me a while to recognize that, but for I removed it for the better, at least during the season. But something that I love to do is go get my nails done. I have them. I think this is the first time I've gotten them all
Those are
different colors
cute.
before for Easter. But it's just, and I get it about once a month. That is my time where I go, and throughout the entire month, having my nails done, it makes me feel good. That sounds possibly silly to some, but for me, that is what fills my cup. And every day, it's not just like the one time a month that I go and get my nails done that is good for me. It is a constant reminder all throughout the month that I did something for myself. And I love looking down and knowing that I have pretty nails and they're not chipped or whatever, like because I used to pick at them all the time. It is something that for me makes me feel good internally. And that's what's important.
Yeah, nothing beats a good old mani-pedi when you're feeling stuff and you get to leave the kiddos at home. Yeah. Or even if it's like, if I don't know, whether it's, going to the drive-through to like grab a Starbucks, like when Hazel was little bitty, like that was my like treat, right? That was my alone time. Putting her in the back seat, knowing she was safe back there, and just being able to get in the car, get a Starbucks, and like drive around for a little bit. Turn on the radio. Like if you have little bitties, that's a really good way to like get in some quote unquote alone time.
You can find our podcast, She's Bridging the Gap, on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, and on YouTube if you want to watch the live video chat.
You can subscribe to our channel now so you don't miss a single episode.
And we're so excited to start helping you build your bridge.